Nice.
Huge shoes. All right. Perfect. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
How are you going? Good to see you all. Want to start by acknowledging the traditional owners where we gather today, which is the Yagara and Turrbal people, and we pay respect to them as the elders past, present, and emerging, and as our first engineers, technologists, and problem solvers this country ever saw. I've had a variety of career aspirations in my life, and when I was 6, I wanted to be a swimmer because I was like quite good at swimming club on a Friday night. And then I turned 8, and I was going to be a tennis player. And then at 9, it was a musical theatre performer. When I was 11, we had a come as yourself in, it was like 2025 day, for example. And I was going to be a child psychologist, and I made a business card. And it had like a little logo with red roses and it said CS on it. So I thought psychologist started with an S. Challenge number 1. And then I thought I was going to be the first female blonde Australian Prime Minister when I was 12 on that obligatory trip to Canberra. But yeah, it was pretty cranky with Julia Gillard. That didn't go down well. Then I was 16. I wanted to be a dentist. And I had an uncle who, like, he thrust my head towards my sister's mouth and said, "This is what you'll be looking at all day." And that was it. But also he works in risk, and like that's pretty boring. So whatever. What do you know? At 17, I wanted to be a doctor, and I did all the subjects. I did all your maths and your science. And then we had this process at school where you go and talk to one of the leadership team about what you wanted to be when you grew up. And I had mine with the principal, and you get your OP prediction at the same time. And I said I wanted to be a doctor. And she said, "Oh, have you considered nursing?" Which it's fine. But I did go through that process. I sat the UMAT. I started a biomedical science degree, and dropped out pretty quick out of that one. And then I was 18. I thought I wanted to be a software developer, and I did 6 months of computer science. But to get through the assignments, which were just like basic Python assignments, I would borrow assignments from people in my class and just make them worse, so that it was more believable it was mine. And that was like first use. This is probably not for me. Probably can't do that forever. And then I was 19 and I thought I wanted to do something, get back to creativity. So I went and changed to QUT and did a Bachelor of Creative Industries, majoring in music, but thought that I probably needed to do something that would make me employable, so I have the business degree on top of that as well. And that music degree just sits there as a HECS now, which is great. And then when I was 21, I graduated from uni, and I wanted to get into a graduate program, and I had a big long list, and I applied everywhere, and I got into none of them. So I took the first job I could find, which was as a graduate consultant in a very, very small HR consulting business, which is what everyone wants, like a graduate consulting on their business as to how they should do things. And then I was 23, and I wanted to work somewhere with free breakfast, dream big. And I got that job, and I was an internal recruiter for about 18 months there, and wasn't particularly prepared for that role as to what it would look like or what recruiting would be like, but there was like ham and cheese croissants once every 3rd week, so it was pretty good. Yeah. And then like COVID hit, and I thought, I'm just sitting at a desk all day. I maybe want to be a drama teacher, but I'd never done drama in my life. And that died pretty quickly, so I got over that one. And then I left that next job because I wanted to work somewhere where I didn't cry every day at work. Again, dreaming big. So I went and I worked at a small recruitment agency here in Brisbane. And I hate networking and couldn't sell ice to an Eskimo. So it was truly the worst possible job for me, but I'm really like quite determined and stubborn. So I was there for about 18 months and did really well. But I guess when I look at my career, it's sort of followed that trend of me making random decisions, and all of a sudden I've got this random career. But essentially I've managed to build a career where I am in this Venn diagram of 2 things that I'm really passionate about and I love, and that's people and technology. And I'm currently the technology capability manager at Auto in General. If you don't know who we are, we own Budget Direct, so that's who we are. But in this role, I manage the learning and development program. So I do a couple of things. I manage an internal learning and development program where we take people from non-technical roles across the business. We teach them how to code and then transition them into development teams. I've done 3 cycles of that now, so about 16 people have gone through that program with me. And they'll come from anything from our contact center, marketing, wherever we'll take them. And the other thing I do is look after technology capability within our technology team, so looking at what we need from our team members, how do we get there, and learning and development programs from there. But yeah, it hasn't always been smooth sailing. You may notice that I've jumped around in terms of what I wanted to be and where I'm going. But I think that was just a pattern that sort of developed for me, was that about every 18 months to 2 years, I'd just have this like crisis of what am I doing with my life, where am I going? And then, yeah, throughout my childhood and throughout high school and university, that's sort of what I did until something changed. So when I was 27, I started to career plan. I'd done the She Codes bootcamp and learned to code through that. And that sort of coincided with me not knowing what was next for me. And I sort of had to think about what I was doing. I sat down and thought, well, I can't go on like this forever. So I had to take stock and really approach my next career move with intention. And this meant to strategically reflect on who I am, what I want, and where I want to go. And yeah, find a role that I'm energized by. Maybe it has free breakfast, maybe it doesn't. But giving me like that work-life balance was the big thing, and finding something that I'm passionate about was the other big thing as well. So I'm going to take you through what I did, which was career planning, and I've sort of formulated a method of doing that. And I've got a there's a book at the end if you want it. Not a book, a guide. I'm not an author. Yes, maybe. But yes, that's sort of where I've come from, where I'm going, and what I'm doing. So my plan, it's got 3 steps. So first of all, you've got to work out who you are, which is pretty simple. And then what do you want? And then we put it all together to form that sort of career plan for you. And I see career planning as a bit like building a house, where you can design your house properly and you can work out the floor plan and that kind of thing. And then that's sort of who you are. And then what you want is sort of your interior design and what it looks like. But if you don't spend the time working out what it's going to look like, you'll end up with a pool with no ladder, a kitchen with no oven and no windows, with an oven and no windows, and a basement with a deranged painting goblin. But if you've got the other side right and you've got the interior design, you haven't sorted that out, you will end up with a house with, grey throw cushions and plastic chairs, and that's about it. So you need both to balance it out, I think, is the big thing. It must be functional, but it also must bring you joy at the same time. So for me, when I did this process, it meant pulling out a large sort of artist pad and using pens and paper to sort of do it that way. And it might look like something different for you. But the important thing for me, I think, is actually writing it down. So doing that physical manifestation of putting pen to paper and not using ChatGPT to work out where you're going. So first step is to look at who you are, which is pretty easy. And we're going to start with an elevator pitch. So imagine you get into a lift and you're going up and you run into someone that you don't know and they say, what do you do? That is what your elevator pitch should be. So thinking about going to the top of that building should take maybe a minute, which is about 200 words, and thinking about what is your elevator pitch for that process. So for me, I'm Emily. My career to date has focused around the synergy between people and technology. I have a background in HR, and then I slowly made my way to where I am today via recruitment, learning to code, which is where I am now, which is in programming capability management. I enjoy roles where I can harness my organizational skills with creativity and strategy, and I'm happiest at work when I get to collaborate on projects with key stakeholders while also being able to work autonomously and execute strategies that may be outside of the box. So that's about 100 words or so. So you can see you've got a bit of room to play with in terms of what that looks like. Then next step is to write a list of every job you've ever had. all of them right from the beginning, whether you're doing paper run or whatever that looks like, and give each job a rating out of 10 to represent the level of job satisfaction you had in each of these jobs. And it's important to look at the common ground between those scores, the ones that, scored quite highly, what do they have in common between all of them, where are the common threads that we're pulling out. It is about looking at it from quite a strategic point of view. Then going to look at the jobs that you've had over the last 5 years and work out what you do day to day and whether there's any significant achievements you had during that time. It shouldn't be exhaustive, but it should give you a focus on what you were doing throughout that time period. So just the big rocks are the key things, and then working out how you can distill that into 10 words per big rock, essentially. Next, you're going to look at your skills. So I've got a list of skills here, which I'll give you later. But circle the ones. Yeah, well, it's not my skills. I've got none of these. So, but looking at these skills and then circling the ones that are relevant to you. I also recommend doing it, coming back to it later as well. And then on the other side of things, you've also got soft skills. So doing the same thing, circling the soft skills that you identify with and adding more if they're not there. And take note of the distribution. If there's, a lot of skills within that people management, but none in the critical thinking, that is going to tell you something as well. Yeah, lots there. Then come to these 4 boxes. So what am I good at? What do I enjoy? What am I bad at? What do I hate? Revert back to your list of skills to help populate this matrix. For me, I'm quite good at talking to people, but I hate talking to people. So a bit of a conflict there in terms of working out where I'm going, what am I doing? Which is, a challenge every day. I manage 6 people that I've had this realization probably in the last month. It's too many. I think 1 is the number. Anyway, it's not about me, it's about you. And then the last step of this, working out who you are, is to think about your values. So here's a list of values, and it's about picking your top 5. And you might have to do this in terms of going from a long list down to a short list, but it will tell you a lot about who you are, what you care about, what's important to you. It's me. And again, doing it, leaving it, coming back a couple of days later. Then we're going to go and wrap it up and go back to step number 1 and actually rewind on that elevator pitch you've created and critically think about the statement of the information that you put together and pulling that into one sort of statement again. So I wanted to pause in the middle of the 2 and look at technology, because it's like quite specific in terms of looking for a job in tech as well, because you've sort of got that added layer of people tend to take that skill set quite seriously. But here's some questions to ask as you go through that process from a technical perspective. So what's your current tech stack? What are your technical tools in your belt? What tech stack do you enjoy working on the most? It could be differentiation there. Are there any gaps in your knowledge that you need to fill in order to be employable? What does the industry landscape look like in the future in relation to your skill set? Do you need to add any skills to be future-proofed from there? So a couple of things to think about in terms of technology. All right, that's part 1. Oh, I've just skipped ahead.
Did your elevator pitch change much between the first time and the second?
I think it would change now. I think if I did it now, I realised that I don't love managing people. So if I did it now, it probably would change. But I think at the time, it's the first time I'd done that process, and it probably was quite consistent. But I think you learn more about yourself and it grows, and here we are. Cool. So step 2 is about what do you want? Again, another pretty easy question to answer, but to break it down. there are no rules in terms of working out what kind of job you want. But I think the key thing is working out who you are, what you want, and the key piece is how you're going to get there. So bridging that gap between the two. So for this one, I've got a big list of industries, and having a look at these industries, thinking about what's a yes, what's a no, and what's a maybe. And some things might have, a response for you. Maybe you are a no to gambling and mining, but like a big yes to banking and finance. Or maybe like telecommunications makes your skin crawl or something. I don't know. These are the questions to answer yourself, but do it for each and every one of them. Even if the bulk of them land in the maybe pile, that is still useful information. It's telling you something. Then this is the big one. So looking at attributes and thinking about the attributes from a manager and the attributes of your ideal role perspective. So when I was in recruitment, the tenure of an average developer was sitting just shy of a year. I think it's probably gone up now. You reckon? Gone up?
Oh, I was saying less than a year.
Really? Yeah, it's like 0.8 of a year. Time. Yeah. But it means that most developers have probably had the opportunity to work in a couple of places, so you've got a good concept of what does and doesn't work for you in the market. So yeah, it's again writing it down, putting things to paper, thinking about a manager. What kind of person is that? What do they do that works for you? What's their leadership style? How many direct reports do they have? What's their background and experience? Communication style, delegation method, problem-solving style, and thinking about company attributes, things like what's their work from home policy, what is their organizational structure and size, and how does the executive team look? What's their delivery methodology? How does diversity look? All of these sort of things are things that you want to think about when thinking about your company attributes. Then making a list of dream companies, and it's splitting it into two. So your little dream companies and your big dream companies. The little ones are the ones that you could probably apply for tomorrow, get an interview, quite easy to be able to do. And the big dream ones are the ones that are maybe more the far-fetched goals, but they are something to work towards or think about in the long term. Yeah. Final step is to look at questions. So I've got a list of questions to go through. And these are things to consider as well. So things like job titles, would and wouldn't consider. Would you relocate for a role? If you were to relocate, where would you relocate to? Would you do any additional study? What would it look like if you did retrain for a role? What's your monetary hygiene factor, which is different to your ideal salary? So thinking about what's like the base low level I could take. What would flexibility look like? And would you like to travel as part of your role? Things to consider. Then we put it all together. First thing is to distill it down to 2 pages. So 1 page for who am I and 1 page for what do I want, and making sure that it's visible to see everything in the one eyesight. And then you're going to reflect on your answers and write a bit of a vision statement. This might all seem a bit woo-woo for people who are like quite techie, but anyway. No, I think the third time I did this speech, I'm like, yeah, maybe not. Anyway, it's fine. Give it a go. So writing a vision statement doesn't need to be in the realm of possibility, but it just needs to be something that gives you an idea of what is that ultimate goal for you that I want to work towards. So it might look something like this. So I want to be a front-end developer at a large fintech company. I want to use React and I want to manage people. I want there to be a focus on learning and development, and I want to work with a manager who demonstrates servant leadership and understands the importance of diversity in a team, and I want there to be free breakfast. So once you've got that statement, you can start looking at the plan. So it could be easy, could be a bit challenging, but thinking about essentially where you are and where you want to be, what are the steps in between? So you might need to ask yourself some questions of like, to get from A to B? Do I need to upskill or retrain? Is there a transition job I need to do in the middle? Do I need to take a break to give you some space to actually uncover what you want to do? Do I need to move into a large company where I can have that ability to move between roles and move into the role that I actually want? So the other key thing to do here is like talking to people that are going to be able to provide you the insights of what is going to help you get there. So whether it's friends or families or colleagues, recruiters, anyone you know who knows more about where you want to go could be helpful in the process. And then looking to execute. So once you've got this plan, it can be a bit of a balance, and like the firmer you hold these requirements for you, like the better off you're going to be in terms of getting to where you actually want to be. I think it's a bit like online dating. You start and you've got these like really strict requirements for yourself, and you're like, no one under 6 foot, and like no one that's holding a fish in their dating profile, and like no one who's like a Jordan Peterson stan. And then you get a bit more desperate, and then it's sort of like it starts to loosen up a bit. And then like a 5'10" man like sneaks through, and then like, you know, maybe he's holding a fish, but you think it's ironic. And then like you think like, oh, he's a standard Jordan Peterson, but at least have really good posture. Like you're thinking like that. And then like you're like dating a fish all of a sudden. And like the same thing is for your career as well. Like the less you hold on to those things, the less likely you are that you're going to end up with something you actually want. So there is a balance of being quite firm with the things that you are actually working towards, and thinking of a long game rather than just picking up that phone from a recruiter and saying, they've got a PHP job, I'm going to do it, rather than thinking strategically about where you're going. I did tell that joke at, where did I tell it? I think I told it in Brisbane, at DDD in Brisbane. And I had, the only piece of feedback I remember was someone who said, there's nothing wrong with men under 6 foot. And like, I'm literally so short. I literally don't care. Anyway, it was an insight into men, you know. So, too easy. That's me. But if you want it, there's my LinkedIn, but there's also my workbook, which is essentially that in like document form. You can download it as just printed out, scribble all over it, and give it a go if you're considering what's next for you. But also, if you don't want to take a screenshot, feel free to send me a message.
It's gonna be saved. It's on the YouTube channel, right?
Yeah.
Yep. That's it.
Thank you.
No worries.
I was wondering if you could just possibly define what servant leadership is.
I think it's a management term that exists, and it's, but I think it does what it says in the tin. It's about like being like
The leader is a servant.
Yes.
A servant of
yes.
the lesser.
So like I'm here to serve you. Not for you.
I don't do the lesser.
Oh, I meant the subordinates.
The plebs.
I'm here to
NPCs?
like unblock you. Whatever you need from me is your leader.
That's a much better word.
Yeah.
Much better.
Yes. Hello.
Hello, thank you for the talk. You do the parallel with the dating profile.
Mm.
When you do the dating profile, you say who you are, and your plan, and you'll notice, kind of shows how to build what you want to be, but didn't really compare with where you are at this point in time. I understand how it might work for the juniors, but if you're somewhere in the middle for the standard period, to have any different processes in terms of actually, first of all, stating, because I think it's a big thing for IT professionals to actually write down your thing for, say, conference call, or just summarize what you did to the points. So when you work with a person, do you get a profile, or is that more of a generic for everyone who you work with?
Are you talking in terms of recruitment?
Yeah.
I've been out of it for a while now, but I think this process is the same no matter where you are in your career. Like you still will come up with a statement of where you're at, and whether that statement says like I'm a graduate developer is just wanting to get into any job, or if I'm a senior PHP developer with 15 years of experience. Yes. and this is where I want to be. I think a statement is a statement for everyone. Does that answer the question? I don't know if
I've just seen some. The reason I'm asking, I've seen a lot of weird things where people either, it's individual cases, but sometimes people say who they are completely related to what they think they do, or sometimes it's something that they just, I'm giving it a go and see if it's gonna work out. So I've seen some weird.
Yes.
That's why I'm asking is, do you first, when you work on plan, do you establish where the person is as they not know where they are? Or that's even straight away go.
I think you need to work with someone where they're at. Like you don't hire for someone based off where they want to be, because that doesn't make sense with their skill set and what you need from a business perspective.
But for career plan.
Career plan.
So you think about management companies, they're working on things. Let's work together, do this work, they can say, work out to do a thing.
Well, your presentation is about how to do it, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. There was kind of no ground zero stuff.
I think the ground zero is always you are starting this career plan from wherever you are.
Yep.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter where you're at in your career. You can start from there and create the ground zero from wherever you are right now. It's about planning that next move rather than planning the whole journey.
Just in my experience, a lot of people don't know where they are.
Yeah.
Guys just playing the next moment.
Yeah. Which is the self-reflection piece. That idea of like, how do I actually work out what I'm good at, what I want to do?
Yep.
What do you think?
Yeah,
Yeah.
give them a link to the workbook. Try it.
It's kind of the wrong time, isn't it, to guide people about their future when you're trying to hire for them? Is that what you were saying? Is that
Yeah.
it's the wrong time to be focusing down the line in your
Yeah.
career when it's about getting hired?
Which I think is what happens a lot of the time. People don't put the work in up front, and then they get the like call of the void, and then decide to get a new job, rather than actually thinking strategically about where you want to go, which I think would have a totally different outcome for you.
I guess kind of the point of like the junior versus senior stuff as well. Like in your first role as a junior, you make that mistake of moving every day.
Yeah.
Employers and you're probably like a lot of the way.
Yeah.
But then you do that for 5 years, start somewhere, probably to take it seriously.
Yes. Yeah.
People might stop hiring you because you jump every 8 months.
Well, that's the average, apparently.
Yeah.
Well,
I still right.
Right.
Got a question in the chat from Jay. She asked me, can you explain what monetary hygiene?
Yeah, so monetary hygiene is like, what do I need to live? What is my rent? What's my budget for life? And then the other idea, like, you might need $70,000 to live, but ideally the thing that you're looking for is $100,000. Like, what is the thing in between in terms of like what makes sense for you and your skill set? But if it's the dream job and they're offering you $70,000, can you actually take that because that's your monetary hygiene factor is resolved?
Do you do this exercise with folks that are transitioning from like contact centers into tech roles? Do you do something like that? Because like, how much of a view are they able to have of the industry, or like kind of just more?
Yeah, they're pretty fresh, and I think it's hard because maybe I don't know if we like take advantage of them, but the good thing about the idea behind the program is that they are quite satisfied for quite a long time because they've come from like everything that's so fresh and so new, and they don't necessarily have the full scope of where it could go. But I do think probably like any business will do like professional development plans with them to work out what are you good at, where you want to go, that kind of thing.
There's like a social piece of like what your experience will work. It's like the certain leadership sort of stuff. That, like in some of those roles, you might not expect to see that in a contact center.
Yes.
That is something you'd be like, work for software engineers, and be like, I want that.
For sure. And I had people come from the contact center and they would do this thing off for the whole year. I didn't say anything about it because that's the kind of leader I am. Push over. But they did this thing where like every time they go for lunch, they send a message on Slack, say lunch, and I send a message to say back, which is like the culture of the contact center. They bring that into the next role. But yes, cultural differences. But yeah, I think it's a work of the program, I guess. Work of working with me. You don't get pulled up.
brain on the transition. I'm curious about that, but I think it's we can get into some pieces as well. Talking over that.
Sweetie.
You're finding yourself on.
Yeah.